Hello, welcome to another TFT mini. Today, we're going to talk about aiming. Yeah, episode 3. Sorry, I should be more on the ball with that, Mike. So today we're going to talk about aiming, dodging, maybe even standbying. Should you do it, Mike?
No. The short answer
Tell
is no.
tell us why.
Yeah. So, if you watched our episode 2 about tempo, if you haven't watched it yet, I would suggest watching it just kind of to get like a
Yeah,
little bit of a
these
baseline
go
on
together.
some of the things that we're talking about. But overall, um, you know, when we're talking about tempo and things that we're aiming and dodging, every time you aim or dodge, you are giving up the opportunity to move and or shoot, depending on what action you gave up to do that, right?
Yeah.
Um, and this game now is very much about positioning, right? You need to be able to double move to points. You need to be able to move, shoot. Every time you aim or dodge, with some exceptions, um, it you are giving up that opportunity. And um, aiming often adds one hit to the pool that you're aiming for. Dodging removes one hit after cover, for whatever pool.
Yeah.
That in the large scheme of things, in a world where like we're throwing often 33% to twice as many dice per unit as we used to when those actions were a little bit more vital. Um, is the value of aims and dodges has lowered considerably since 2.6.
And especially with the changes to cover, it used to be a situation where in the old version of cover, taking an aim would be the only way that you could like have even a remote chance of like getting damage through
Yep.
to try to like hunt for a crit or like get the 3 regular hits you need to get past heavy cover. And conversely, taking a dodge would mean that even if they get 3 regular hits, I can still get rid of them all.
Yep.
And that's no longer the case with new cover. I very much enjoy the new cover compared to the old one for this reason, because it did promote a more dynamic version of the game. But and then on top of that, the the new nature of objectives, where all of the primary objectives, at least when we're recording this in May 2025, involve huddling around POIs that sometimes have various other effects attached to them. You got to be there. You got to be there to get it done.
Yep.
And if like you're gonna get to this point where like you will often be at round 4 and you'll look over at one of your units, and if you have enough hindsight to think about the fact that that unit took 2 aim actions over the course of the first like couple rounds of the game, like rounds 2 and 3 that took an aim action each, and that it's so far off that it actually can't run to contest a point that actually would have won you the game. I promise to everybody who's watching this, and this includes me, probably includes you, Mike, that we've been in positions where that has been the case, where if we like chose to move instead of taking an aim or a dodge action, or sometimes even a standby, that we would have been in a better position and maybe in a position to actually win the game. So the generally, I think that the rule that I've gotten myself into is that if I'm about to take an aim or a dodge action, I look down at my mini and I say, is or at my unit rather, and I ask myself, is this unit exactly where I want it to be next round? And if the answer is actually yes, this gets into like the caveats, right, to the don't take aims or dodges,
Yes.
because there are obviously many. But maybe the easiest example of that is that if you are positive that a unit is exactly where it needs to be, then by all means, probably take the aim action in that sense, because that is usually better for tempo, unless you have nimble, I guess. But the aim action will like potentially let you get rid of more of their dice earlier, which is why you might want to take it. But again, only if you're perfectly, completely, 100% happy with where that unit is, would I
That's
think
a
about doing
tall
that.
ask, I think, generally, because I think in order to be perfectly like sure in this edition of the game, you got to be
Yeah,
sure that that unit can cover your other units that potentially could die on other points, right?
correct.
And that's the crux of your units are going to have to be before you start taking aims and dodges, like your units are probably going to need to be in the middle of the board. They should be on top of POIs and they should be in places on that POI that they could go and contest another POI if you need them to, right?
Yep.
Um, and I think the one of the exceptions to that is dodging. If like it's the only unit you have on a POI and you really, really need it to live,
Correct.
like that is a situation where okay, maybe forego moving or shooting to take a dodge action because if you don't, it might cost you a victory point, right?
Yeah.
Um, but on the same token, like if you could have shot something that would have been and killed more things than that dodge token would have netted you, shooting's
Yeah.
still better, right?
Yep.
And so it's often one of those things where you got to factor in like, often shooting, even with, if you get two hits in against a unit that is shooting you or could shoot you, you already are basically netting the effect of a dodge action in addition to um, doing attrition to your opponent.
Yeah. And I would also say if they're sometimes you look at a unit and you try to activate it early because again tempo because it's at risk and you're pretty sure that it's like about to die. Um, with that unit, uh, if if they're suppressed, for instance, you're only going to get one action, so you can either dodge or shoot. Uh, if they're going to die anyway, then the dodge is like there's a certain point at which it becomes pointless.
Yep.
But like if you have a too many rebel trooper squad, that is probably doomed. But it does have a chance to shoot at, especially an enemy trooper. Like adding that suppression, maybe like getting a wound in, that's still something. And even though like again that unit is probably going to die, it will by activating it early and getting it at least giving yourself the chance to contribute a little bit. um, you will be better off rather than like yeah if you have a doomed unit, then taking a dodge action rather than just like getting a little bit of a shot in. It's often just not worth it. uh, Other things that can affect this are token sharing. So obviously, like the value of an aim or a dodge is much higher on either an exemplar or a clone trooper. But even in those cases, Mike, I still think that those units only slightly are going to be favoring taking those actions more compared to the other units, and that they will actually also often want to, like usually I should say, be moving onto points, moving into line of sight blocking cover, doing the things that will prevent your opponent from like gaining a tempo advantage, which is what we talked about in the last video. And so yeah, like are there other situations where you think aiming and dodging is worth it?
I mean, there are lots of like very minute, kind of like
Yeah,
situations that if we listed off all the corner cases, we'd be here
sure.
for a very long time. I think one of the easiest ones is you're in melee. You can't like you would give up your attack to
Yeah,
move,
moving would be
right?
actually bad
Right.
for you.
Um,
Yeah,
you know, in that case, yeah, you maybe want to aim or dodge
yeah,
if you
exactly.
don't think you're going to kill the unit you're in melee with. I think
Yeah.
that's probably the biggest situation where aiming and dodging is reasonable. I think I also would like to point out that units that gain tokens naturally, um, you know,
This is
uh,
why tactical and agile are awesome
are
keywords.
huge, right?
Yeah.
And notably with a rebel trooper unit, don't you dare ever take that dodge action. You better
Just move.
move,
Move, bro.
right? Like if you ever take the dodge action on a rebel trooper unit, I will call you and find you. You know,
Yeah.
yeah,
Because
you know,
even if it's on the point, there's almost always like being on the
a
opposite side of the point or
slightly
having
better
better
place you
cover.
could be, right?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
there's pretty much always something, and it's sort of the same about taking aim actions with ARC troopers, right? Like
Aim's a
how
little
often?
different, but yeah. Sometimes
Yeah,
you don't want to be any closer or
yeah,
like
that's
you're in
that's
the
fair.
like
That's
there
fair.
there are certain situations where aiming instead of like moving and triggering tactical. Generally speaking, if you have the tactical keyword, you should always be trying to trigger it with your instead of taking aims for sure.
Yeah,
Um Sometimes there are times when you don't, but they're very few and far between.
Yeah. What about standbys, Mike? I think that something that I do sometimes see new players do is to overvalue the standby. And sometimes I'll even see it like on round one when there's never anything in the world that's going to trigger a standby from them, but that it's still taken when it's very likely that another move, even if it was a small move, to like stay safe but be in a slightly better position, would have been better for them. Um, and especially given the decreased value of standby in New Legion, like what are your thoughts about like the limited situations where that is actually more worth it than a move is?
I think I can count the amount of times I've taken a standby in like the last 15 games on one hand. And I think I have half of them I regretted. You know,
Yeah.
so I think I would encourage people to forget standby exists for the most part, unless you're getting the standby token for free. But unfortunately, a lot of those units are not super great right now. Um, so is there use cases for it? Absolutely. I think the biggest one is you know your opponent, like your opponent's only got like one unit left, and you know they have to like double move onto a POI, and you can assure that you have a unit that can shoot them with a standby when they do that, but only if you can't shoot them already,
If you can't
right?
shoot them already,
Right?
yeah.
Like
So it would have to be that they'd be behind a building, but that you would be able to see them when they popped out. You can't see them right now, and I think you mentioned that that sort of a situation, it's best to do that with the vehicle because then that takes away even the idea that somebody would be able to shoot it off. And we're also talking about a hover ground or a walker vehicle when we say that because the it has to be a non-speeder to take a standby. Um, but yeah, like I think that generally that is the use case when you're already your unit is where it needs to be,
yep.
and it ideally would have attacked an opponent, but it has no option to do that. And so if you're again, yeah, if you know that your opponent is going to be motivated to come into your zone, and that therefore the standby is not going to be shot off or wasted in some way,
Yeah.
um, that's the situation where you can do it. But that doesn't come up mega often.
It doesn't. The
Uh,
last time my opponent did it to me, I activated the unit he thought was going to trigger it, and I just passed.
yeah, that's still an option sometimes for sure.
It's like, "Yeah, I'm good. I don't
So
want your dark troopers to shoot me."
I think that in summary, the the move action is the most important action in the game
Yes.
because it gets you to POIs. And it can also do various other things, such as protect you from shots via cover or LOS blocking. And move actions can also even like block your opponent from getting into a point, especially if you have something like a super squad and your opponent has a vehicle. Sometimes taking that move action can just mean that you can mess with your cohesion to like block them out of being able to contest something. And attacks are the other important thing, and that like all the other actions in the game are like far behind those in terms of importance, and therefore you should really be thinking twice, thrice, four times before you're actually going to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah. Just move and just shoot, guys. That's what it comes down to.
It's
Move and
moving and
shoot.
shooting
Move, shoot.
game.
Yep. Run and gun.
Yeah.
It's a first person shooter.
Well, yeah. So sometimes it's a first person puncher, especially
There,
these days. But
first person
uh,
charger.
yeah. Anything else on aims and dodges aside from the fact that we hate them and that we're just actively campaigning against them?
Well, I mean, if you can get
And
them for
unless they're free,
free,
by the
if
way.
if you get them for free, it's different.
Yeah.
And I would say that free is not paying for them on upgrades generally.
Yeah, that's hopefully you watch
Yeah,
that one.
yeah.
Paying
So
yeah, paying 6 points does not make it free to give you tactical for one round.
yeah,
But yeah, I think that's all we got. Thank you for watching. If you like what we do, consider checking our Patreon, and we'll see you on the next mini-sode.